Hi everyone, this is Julia Coletti from Motivation Club TV, connecting people to help people, to motivate, inspire and support everyone to live their life to the fullest. This week's topic is suicide awareness and suicide prevention. And today I have the wonderful Christine Howard here today. The international author, speaker and life coach herself, Christine Howard, is a mother who lost her 20-year-old daughter to suicide. The recently published author of Coping with Suicide shares her first-hand experience of how this tragedy unfolded and affected her family and friends. Coping with Suicide empowers you to take control of your emotional, physical and mental well-being. Written with the hope that her daughter's story can make a difference in the life of others, Christine now coaches, counsels and supports other people who have been touched by suicide or who are fearful that it may become a reality in their own lives. So thank you very much, Christine, for being here today. It's my absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate your time coming here today. And I'm really looking forward to picking your brain on the topic. So thank you so much for being here. To start off with, could you tell us a bit about your daughter and her story?
Okay, Kelly. She'd always been a perfectionist as a child. She was an A-grade student, a good girl, very caring, kind, loving friend and daughter. And then things started to go wrong, and her behaviour became very erratic. She had two visits to the local psych ward. Both times the psychiatrist sent her home saying that there was nothing wrong with her. And but we knew that she wasn't the Kelly that we'd grown up with. And sadly, it culminated in her taking her own life. So, sorry.
I was going to say, in the time leading up to her death, what was going on for her?
Well, she was... Normally, Kelly was very well kept, meticulous. I mean, she was the type of girl that she was a good netballer and she wouldn't get on the netball court unless she had her legs shaved. But the Kelly in the few weeks before she died, she was dirty. Her hair was not washed. She was carting her possessions around in black plastic garbage bags. She was just like a little old bag lady. And she was giving things away, and it was really sad to see. And it was just, and mentally, you couldn't have a conversation with her because she was just not with it, really. She was put on medication, but she was selling them, selling the drugs. So they weren't helping her in any way, except maybe financially.
And in the weeks before her suicide, was there a change in her behaviour, or was it the same?
Look, it was like on a roller coaster. Some days she wasn't too bad, but other days she was really delusional, and she had all these stories about what she was doing and what she was going to be doing, and you could see it was not right, wasn't true, but you couldn't point that out to her because it just meant nothing. She would just get angry with you because you didn't believe what she was saying.
After her death, what did yourself and your family experience?
The initial feeling was shock. It was just total disbelief. This sort of thing happens to other people, not to you. And it was very, very hard to handle. But then I guess in some respects it restored my faith in human nature, because I couldn't believe the love that we experienced from all avenues, everywhere. You know, like the morning after Kelly died, I opened the front door and there were flowers on the doorstep. There was casseroles and people bought food and people rang and it was amazing. The support was awesome. You know, you sort of question yourself, have I done that for other people? But yeah. The initial phase, those first few weeks, the support was amazing, but then people go about their own lives and you're left floundering.
And what was that, you know, that period after the first few weeks, what was that like for you?
It was hard. I think the hardest thing was going back to work. I had really good supportive bosses and they let me have time off.
Yeah.
And going back to work and trying to integrate myself back into normal everyday life was really difficult. You've got this feeling on the one hand that you don't want to be boring people or becoming a drain or someone that they didn't want to be around. But inside you're feeling sick and sad and awful. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
So it wasn't easy. Yeah.
Yeah. And at what point did you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel and start to deal with it?
It's hard to say. It probably took quite some time before you start thinking that, yeah, I think I'm going to be okay. A lot of life was going through the motions.
Yeah.
Cooking and eating because you have to,
Yeah.
washing and going to work, and, you know, life goes on.
Yeah. And
doing the mundane and everyday things. But then after normal, being able to drive down the street and go past landmarks that you'd done things with Kelly and not break down in tears. Being able to listen to a song on the radio that came on that we used to laugh and sing about, or something that she loved, you know, then all of a sudden you look back and you think, oh, okay, I'm doing okay. You're still sad, you've still got all that grief inside you, but you managed to get through most of your days without breaking down or being maudlin and sad and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And how did you overcome it? Like, did you go to counselling or any sort of therapy, or was there anything else that you used?
Yeah, my husband and I went to counselling because, I mean, I needed to do something. I knew I needed to do something to help me keep going. Yeah. You know, the first initial few weeks was probably in an alcohol-fueled haze. Drank far too much, far more than I should have done. But, you know, you do whatever you can to cope. It helped a lot. And just talking to friends. You know, you get to the point where it was great.
Okay, cool. And how did the rest of the family, because I know she had siblings, how did they overcome it and how did they cope with it?
Wanted to go to do counselling, and I remember having a discussion with my counsellor about, I was concerned because I felt that they needed counselling as well, because it's a great release, because a counsellor can bring up issues that you hadn't really thought about, and then you can address them. And she said to me, she said, just consider that the counselling that they're getting is from my husband and I. So it was like we were going to counselling and then we were passing it on in subtle ways, if you like.
Totally.
My son, he seemed to cope reasonably well, and a few years later he did get counselling. My daughter coped reasonably well at the time, but I don't think she ever got counselling, not that I know of, which is, I mean, I think it's a shame. I think it doesn't matter how long after the event. One of the policemen that attended the morning that Kelly died took my husband aside and he said to him, get counselling. He said he'd lost a brother in the Hoddle Street massacre, and he said it took him 7 years before he did anything about it. And he said, I wish now that I'd done it so much earlier, because it made such a difference in his life once he did get counselling. So if anyone's in the same situation, I would recommend it, even a few visits.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. What is your advice to anyone that has lost a loved one to suicide?
Oh, talk about it.
Yeah.
Don't bottle it up. Get help, get counselling. You know, if you've got no one around you that you can talk to, talk about it. I mean, that's one of the reasons I wrote a book, because I know that we were blessed to have lots of people around us that we could talk to and support us. There are people out there that have no one, and I wanted the book to be something that they could read and feel that they're not alone in their feelings, and that it's okay to cry, and that you can. We grieve in lots of different ways. My grief has changed over the years. It's not the raw, harsh grief of the initial early years, and now it's softer, and but it's still there, and it will be with me till the day I die.
Yeah.
But I've learned how to cope with it, and my husband and I had a few little systems that we've set in place, and if one of us was feeling particularly sad or miserable, we would say to each other, and I'd say, I'm just having an attack of the Kellys. You knew.
Yeah.
So you would just, you know, if I wanted help from him, I would ask for help from him, but I'd just say, I'm having an attack of the Kellys, and we'd leave each other alone, but be there for us, each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful bond between the two of you guys. I wanted to ask, what else did you learn from that experience with Kelly?
Well, probably my biggest regret is, I mean, I'm a nurse from way back, and I did my nursing training a long time ago. And when I was training, we were told the people that threaten to commit suicide don't follow through. So when Kelly was suicidal, I didn't take a lot of notice. Not that I didn't take notice of it, but I didn't really think that it would escalate to the extent that it did. So I've learned to look for signs, to learn the signs, and to know, and hopefully I'll never need to know it, to use that knowledge again. But I have the knowledge now that I didn't have back then. I've educated myself a lot.
That's wonderful. What would be some of the signs for a parent to look out for in their child in the same position?
Well, changes in behaviour, for a start. Like I said before about Kelly, was really fastidious about her appearance and behaviour, and that changed drastically. She didn't care. She was giving things away. She even gave her bed away. I mean, really, when you stop and think about it, why would you give your bed away? Well, it's probably because you're not going to use it again. I talk about it in the book. I'd made her Deb dress for her, and she absolutely loved it. But she started carting it around in a black plastic garbage bag. And I thought, and I knew she was giving stuff away. And she'd come home for a stay at one stage because I think she was couch surfing. And the garbage bag with the Deb dress was sitting at the bottom of the stairs, and she was upstairs asleep. So I stole it because I knew how much she loved it, and I didn't want her to be giving it away. So I took it and I ran it across the road to my neighbour and asked her to look after it for me, so then I could say I didn't have it. But she never asked for it. So I don't think whether she was aware that it was gone or whether she maybe thought that she'd given it away. I don't know. I'll never know. What else? What was the question again? I'm sorry. I've probably...
some of the signs. No, that's okay. Some of the signs. Some of the other ones.
Very erratic behaviour.
Yeah.
She wasn't concentrating. She had a little car, and she'd had 2 minor accidents in that. Like she'd run up the back of somebody, and my husband ended up taking the rotor button out of the car, so she couldn't start it, and it was in our backyard. And we got up one morning, and it was a hatchback, and the roof was open, and it was draped in scarves, and there were candles and all sorts of things. It was really weird. Not the sort of thing that you do. So, you look at that and you think, oh, that's okay. She'd open tins of food and not do anything with them. So that you'd go out and you'd come back and there'd be tins of food and packets of things opened on the bench, but not eaten, not touched. She told stories about, how she was helping this person and teaching that person, and she became delusional in who she, in some respects, it was her. Incredibly sad to watch.
Yep.
Especially when you couldn't help.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I know that this is really hard for you, and even after all of these years, so I really do appreciate it. I know that this experience guided you and inspired you to do something much greater with your life and to help others. Could you tell me a bit about, becoming a coach and what you do now to help others when it comes to suicide?
Okay. Nurturing, caring is in my nature.
Yeah.
And when the dust settled, I sort of started looking for things that I could do. It's a pretty horrible place to be in, losing a daughter like that. So I've done lots of things that I thought Kelly would benefit from if she were here today. And coaching was one of them. I learnt about coaching. And then I wrote the book. I mean, I'd always wanted to write a book and didn't know what I was going to write a book on. And after Kelly died, I thought I could do something to help prevent suicide by writing the book and telling her story. I didn't write the book to tell another sad story because there's plenty of them around. I wanted it to be a tool that could be used to help others and to maybe prevent a life. Ideally, I'd like to prevent lots and lots of suicides. But I'll start small and I'll work my way up. And I'm counting on the ripple effect.
Oh, you definitely are creating one.
I hope I am. I'm not the sort of person to put myself out there. So I've really gone out on a limb with this, and but I'm passionate about helping others not go through what we went through. And
Beautiful.
and that's what led me to where I am today. I do public speaking. I'd like to do a lot more of it, because the more I could do, the more chance I have of getting the message out there and infecting more people with the Let's Prevent Suicide virus.
Yes, totally. Could you tell us a little bit more about your book, Coping with Suicide?
It's called Coping with Suicide, the Signs We Missed and the Strategies in the Aftermath. So I go through the signs that, when I look back now, they were glaringly obvious, and a lot of what I've told you before, with Kelly. And then the strategies that we used to cope. Now, one of my strategies was to write. And I journaled for a long time, on and off. And I can remember, I don't know how long after Kelly died, I remember sitting at the computer writing a letter to her. And I couldn't even see the screen, but I wrote letters to Kelly because it just sort of like it kept her closer to me, I think. And part of me was thinking that she's going to be able to see all this anyway, but I wanted to tell her how I was feeling and what was happening in the family, and like the people that came to her funeral. Just an idea. I mean, obviously I'm biased as a mother, but the type of person she was, there were two people at her funeral who were her primary teachers from primary school. And we'd had no contact with them since primary school. But she'd obviously made an impact on them for them to come.
Yeah.
So, she wasn't someone that could be disregarded. She made an impact on people. She was a loving, caring, fun girl, and which made it all the more tragic, I suppose.
Because I believe your book is very inspiring. There's a lot in it, especially with the strategies to overcoming the aftermath is very important. How can people get in touch with you for coaching, for speaking opportunities, and in regards to your book as well?
Okay. I have a website, and it's christinejhoward.com.au. I have a Facebook page as well, Christine J. Howard. I'm on LinkedIn at Coping with Suicide, #Coping with Suicide. And maybe not LinkedIn, Instagram and LinkedIn as well. So you found me.
Yeah.
It's I don't think I'm all that difficult to find. If you search because there's a lot of Christine Howards out there, so that's why I've got J in there.
Yep.
To differentiate me. But yeah, look me up on Facebook.
Yep.
And send me a message.
Yeah, wonderful.
And I make myself available. I'm not sitting here by the phone waiting. I do have other things to do, but yeah.
Wonderful. So it's good to know that anyone can get in touch with you. So anyone in the audience that is interested or in having a conversation with Christine, or who has been through the same thing and would like some guidance, or who just wants to connect in general, that's how you get in touch with her, and I'll include all of those links. Christine, as we're coming to the end of our interview today, it's been wonderful spending this time with you. I've learned a lot and I really appreciate it. What's your final message to the world in regards to suicide?
I believe that we all, as a community, we all have a responsibility in the prevention of suicide. And by that I mean we need to educate ourselves to the potential signs, some of the signs, some of the symptoms, learn what some of the myths are, and tipping points. A tipping point is something that's like the last straw. Yeah. So we need to know And we need to have the courage to ask someone the question. If you think someone might be considering suicide, ask the question. I mean, consider that if you thought that so-and-so was thinking about suicide and you didn't ask the question and they did, how would you feel? Would you rather go to their funeral next week or feel a little bit embarrassed for asking the question? And there's plenty of information out there. I only cover a little bit of it. If you can get on Google and go for it, there's so much information and there are so many places to help. I mean, Lifeline alone last year received over 1 million calls.
Yeah.
And that's just the people that actually had the courage to call them. There'll be a lot that didn't. And for every one person that dies, and there are 8.3 die every day in Australia, there are 30 people that attempt suicide that we know of. And, you know, there'll be a lot more that we don't know of and that wouldn't ask for help. So I think it's up to us to start looking at our friends and family and caring about them and having the courage to ask the question. And maybe, just maybe, we can save a life.
That's a very beautiful message. Thank you so much, Christine. It has been such a pleasure and an honour speaking to you today. Everyone in the audience, please, as we were discussing beforehand, Christine, it's everyone's responsibility. However, it's no one's fault in the end. I truly do believe that, but it is everyone's responsibility to look after each other and our friends and our family especially. Ask the question. So that's it for today. It's been such a pleasure spending time with you, Christine. Thank you so much. And everyone in the audience, get in touch with Christine, follow her on Facebook, Instagram. All of the links will be available. And so that's it for the Motivation Club TV today. Thanks again, Christine. I appreciate it. And bye to everyone that's watching today. Bye.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.